Welcome back to Movie Munchies. I'm Alexis. If you've never been here before, we watch movies and we eat them, and I do remember how to do that, but it has been a long time since I've been in here in a chair recording a video, so please excuse my awkwardness because I barely remember how to do this. Okay, today is treat day. A very long time ago, we watched Fantastic Mr. Fox. Today, we're making a feast for it. Let's do this. Please forgive me in whatever happens here. I started off with the apple cider. I decided to do this in the crock pot because it just seemed like the simplest way to do it. Is that how I want to put that? It was just kind of, it just seemed to make sense. Excuse me. Let me cite the recipe that I used. Homemade apple cider by Mackenzie. Really? Is that how you spell your name? Okay, if you insist. Mackenzie Gore. And this began with quartering some apples and tossing them in the crock pot. We're gonna zoom through that. And an orange. I just cut the orange in half and squeezed it a little bit into the crock pot. Then to this, I added cinnamon sticks. She said 4 cinnamon sticks, but these were smallish. So I just grabbed a handful and dropped it in there. Also 1 whole nutmeg and allspice? Yeah, a teaspoon of allspice and a teaspoon of cloves. All these things I got from the farmer's market in like the Mexican Latin American section, where the spices are so much cheaper than the ones you get in the little plastic container things that are on the like little island. Anyways, I also added brown sugar, half a cup, but a little skosh more than half a cup, because I like, I want it to be sweet. Can't be too sweet? I don't think so. And then I just dumped water on top of this until I couldn't fit any more water in there. How much water that was, don't ask me because I don't know. So I let that sit, I believe, on high for like hours. It's getting late. The apple cider has been in the crock pot for like 4 hours now. And I would like to go to bed because I have to work early in the morning. So I'm going to take out the orange peel, I'm going to take out the oranges and some of the spices and just let it cool down and leave it until tomorrow and we'll come back to it. But here's what it looks like now. Woo! It smells divine. It's looking pretty good, not gonna lie. So the next day, after all of that had cooled and I had taken all of the stuff out of it, I mashed up the apples as best I could. I just kind of used what I had around. I tried to think my way around how to strain it into my little, what do you call this thing? What do you call that? My glassware. Yeah, I know that. It's a little spout pitcher. Sure, my spout pitcher. I try to think of the best way to strain it in there. As you can see, my initial plan, I thought better of it. I knew it was going to make a mess. Unfortunately, my second plan still made a mess. But I'm innovative, I'm creative, I can figure things out, problem solve, and yada yada. So my third plan worked out much better. I just strained it into a smaller bowl, only because that was the size of the strainer that I had. It worked best, for hooking it around the edge. Strained it into the bowl, then poured it into the pitcher spout, the spout pitcher. That got about half a gallon, or maybe it was more. No, it was half a gallon, I would say. I think the spout pitcher holds like a gallon of stuff. I don't know, it looks bigger than that. Maybe it holds 2 gallons. Maybe it's just a gallon. I don't know. It filled up half of that, and I'm not good with volume. So, there you go. Then I put that in the fridge and held it until whenever. Okie dokie, moving on to the cookies. Yeah. Well, I decided to do Mrs. Bean's famous Nutmeg Ginger Applesnaps. I will precede this with, I did not like this recipe. Now, generally, when I mess something up, or do something wrong, or don't follow the instructions, and therefore it messes up the product, the end product, I'll admit that. This, I did everything it said to do, and those cookies were not my favorite part of the meal. And you know what? It's sad because, I had so many different elements that I made and did for this feast, and the baking ones, the ones that required baking or skills of that nature, were the ones that didn't turn out great. But it's all content. This recipe, not to call her out, but let's see. I used her nutmeg ginger apple snap recipe, and this is how it went. I started off with a lot of flour, because that's what it said to do. Then added the spices, which were cinnamon, ginger, ground cloves, and some salt, sorry. And I sifted all of that together. Then I grated the nutmeg and added that to the dry ingredients. I whisked the dry ingredients together, and it nearly suffocated me, is what I'll say. There were a lot of spices in there, which surprisingly didn't come out in the end. You couldn't taste them that well, but Lord, did I smell them. So then in the stand mixer, I put some butter beating. I put some butter going in the stand mixer with the paddle attachment. And while that was going, I grated some fresh ginger for the ginger apple snaps. And added that to the butter. Added sugar, regular cane sugar and brown sugar, and also some of our favorite, molasses. Then I fluffed those together, and while that was going, I made some apple slices to go on top. I just used my little mandolin. Those are dangerous. Be careful, don't cut your fingers off. We wanted that little star design pattern or whatever in the middle, so that's what that was. So once all of the butter and stuff was fluffed up, I added the eggs and then the dry ingredients. And before you blame me for anything that went wrong here texturally, I did not overmix this. Once all the dry ingredients were added, I turned it off and mixed the rest with the spatula. So what I also did in a separate bowl was put some turbinado sugar and cinnamon. I mixed those together just to sprinkle on top. Then I took freeform scoops of this cookie dough, which didn't honestly feel as solid as cookie dough usually does. It was kind of soft out the get-go, which should have been an indicator for me, but whatever. Also, when I was putting them on the baking sheet, I did use my little Silpat, but is that what that's called? Hang on. Yeah, a Silpat. I said Silpat, but you know what I meant. Silpat. Am I saying the same? Whatever. I used the little spacing things on there, but they needed more space. And when I did the other batches, I left more space for them to grow and expand. So then I put the apple slices on top. We'll talk more about what should have happened there later. And I sprinkled it with the turbinado sugar. Put them in the oven. Didn't quite bake them long enough. But I had a lot more dough, so the other ones I baked as well as I could, and even fresh, right? Because I'll talk more about what they tasted like when I finally got to eat them. But even when they came out fresh and had cooled down enough, the texture wasn't right. Ginger snaps are supposed to snap, and these did not snap. They were very dry, very bland cookies. And the apple should have been pre-baked and then put on top of the cookies, because that moisture from the fruit didn't allow the cookie dough underneath it to get fully cooked. I just think that the ratios in the recipe itself were off. Because, first of all, we put a lot of flour in there. Compared to everything else, it was so much flour, and that just was not right. And you can taste that when you're eating the cookie. So, sorry, Lindsay. I would do it differently next time. I would maybe combine the process of this one with a different cookie base recipe, you know what I mean? But moving on to the donuts, part 1. I did the filling, the gooseberry. I don't even think I explained what I wanted to do. I decided to do donuts. Don't ask me to remember the character's name. All the farmers. Which one of them did goose liver donuts? I said I would do donuts, but I was adamant about not filling them with goose liver. You know, I don't even really know where I would get goose liver. So what I decided to do instead was gooseberry jam. Just to play on words. You know, I'm sure goose liver and gooseberry taste very different. But I don't know, I'm not the expert. So I hunted around the farmer's market for a very, very long time looking for gooseberries. And I, lo and behold, found them in the frozen section of the European freezer aisle. I believe the bag is in, it's Russian. I can't read that. But they're gooseberries. How did I know? I think there's a sticker on the back that says it. Also, I knew what they looked like, so I saw them and I was like, oh yeah, that's gooseberries. And then I looked at the back where it had it in English and I was like, yeah, those are gooseberries indeed. So anyways, I took the frozen gooseberries, I let them thaw a little bit, and then I dumped them in a saucepan, added water and lemon juice. I let that get to a simmer, and then added the sugar, which I did put a lot of sugar in there, but you know what? It turned out great, so it's whatever. Then I let that go for 10 minutes and let it get a little darker, and then I did a test sample on a cold piece of thing, and once that had cooled off and I could run my finger through it and it was, you know, that nice jelly texture, then I knew it was done. I pulled it off the heat, I put it in a bowl, I let it cool down, waited to do the donuts so that I could fill it with the jam. And this was around the time that I got my hair cut. And just so you know, that was a big deal for me because I have never had short hair in my life. It's always been long, always gone down to like the bottom of my spine. And I just finally decided I was done with it. And you know what? I think it suits me so much better. I feel so free. I recommend it if you've been thinking about doing it yourself. I am a new me, a new Alexis. Anyway. I'm going to regret this, I think. It's almost 8:45 p.m. and I am just now getting started on a recipe that supposedly takes approximately 2.5 hours. We'll see how long it takes me to do it. So, well, it started not bad, except that, and this is where I will call myself out. Hang on, what's the recipe I used? Simple homemade sugar donuts by Marina. Sure. You know what I've noticed? Most of these recipes are done by white people. You know what? I'm not gonna... Let's not go into that. Anyways, the reviews were really good on these donuts. And I will give her credit. It is a really good recipe. I'm the one who messed this up. First of all, I don't think my yeast was good, that messes everything up from out the gate. But anyways, I put my yeast, I activated it. You know what? I hate the way yeast looks. That's a sidebar. But I added like a little bit of sugar to the yeast and then the warm water and let that activate off to the side until it like foamed up to double the volume, And while that was doing that, I put my other ingredients in the stand mixer. So that was flour, sugar, more sugar, egg yolks, salt. Did I put in salt yet? Butter and warm milk. And then the yeast, which I'm not convinced activated right, because I think the yeast was it was old. I used the dough hook to knead that together. And while that was going, I greased the inside of a second bowl so that I could plop that in there when it was done. And you know what? Initially it was pretty and the right texture that it said it should be, or that the recipe said it should be at that point. So, I don't know. Fought with it a little bit to get it out of the bowl. Then I kneaded it just a little bit more myself to check the texture and yada yada. It felt fine. So I plopped it in that bowl and greased top with butter, put a kitchen towel over it. And what I did was set it in the oven. I had put the oven at a very, very, very low temperature, like as low as the oven would go. And then once it hit that temperature, I turned the oven off, opened the door, let some of that heat out so that it got to like a neutral warm, not hot, but neutral warm temperature. And then I let the dough proof in the neutral warm oven because it was a cold night this night, and that was my second issue with this dough. Moment of truth. 1, 2, 3. I say let's give it another half hour. Back in you go. I did keep putting it in, taking it back out, putting it in, taking it back out. That could have been my problem too. But the proving takes so long. I also had to make some kind of rash decisions because I decided to do this so late, which was a mistake on my part. And I knew that going into it. I'm getting tired. I am tired. It is now 10:49, which means it's been 2 hours since I started. And these still have to prove again for another hour. So... But so I kind of rushed the proofing. And then also it was cold. And then also I think my yeast was bad. All those things combined. This is a science, unfortunately, even though I don't do science. The process of making baked goods, which includes fried donuts, is a science, and I didn't get the, formula exactly right. So I cut circles out of the dough as much as I could. I also did that thing where I balled it back up and rolled it back out. That was a problem too. That's a me thing, Then I just sat the towels over it. I think I left them on the counter to prove first. And they didn't rise at all. So I ended up putting them in the oven the next time to prove because it was so cold in the apartment at this point because it was the middle of the night. So yeah, those are my issues. So then I went ahead and fried the donuts. Jesus Christ. I fried the donuts in my little deep fryer, which I only have one small one, So I had to do them one at a time, really. What are you gonna do? You work with the tools that you have as best you can. That oil was heating up literally the entire time that I was proofing donuts, so. It was hot. It was hot enough. At least the first one, I think I touched it too much. So you can see my fingerprints from where I touched it, because you're not supposed to touch the dough like that. You're supposed to put it on a sheet of parchment paper and then slide it in there you know, okay, whatever. I didn't do that for the first one. Then once it cooled off, you know, once it was done golden brown, put it on the rack to cool off. Then I rolled it in sugar. Then to the best of my ability, yeah, the donuts are flat. So, because they didn't rise. Because it was too cold in my yeast. And yeah. I did my best to fill them with the gooseberry jam. They weren't hollow on the inside, so you can imagine how that went. I did try it while it was fresh. It was good. It's good. The donuts, while they were fresh, I tried a smaller one that did puff up the way it should have. They all should have. But, and it was good when it was fresh. Unfortunately, I had more stuff to do for the feast, so I couldn't eat the rest of the donuts while they were fresh, which is what you're supposed to do with donuts. I know. You gotta work with what you got, right? And the time. Who has the time? I don't. Anyways, let's move on. So, in honor of Ash from the movie, I'm not making fun of him, but I just loved the wet sandwich comment, and therefore I made I just made tea sandwiches, you know, like that you would find in a little tea party, little outside, you know, whatever. I made 2 different kinds. So I made an egg salad one, and for that I chopped up some cilantro, and I sliced up some radishes and cucumbers. And I did this while I was waiting for the donuts to proof. So that's about when I started warming up the oil. I had pre-boiled some eggs, and so I just mushed those up and added some mayonnaise to it, some salt, pepper, chili powder, and the cilantro that I had chopped up. Very simple. I mixed those together, and honestly, for being so simple, it was pretty tasty. Then I found this. So the recipe I was referencing was by Nisha. Her recipe called for red garlic chutney, and I couldn't for the life of me find any red garlic chutney in the store. So I got this ground chili with garlic, like a chili oil, basically, a garlic chili oil. And I used that, and honestly, it tastes really good. It's just got a punch. We'll talk about that later. But so instead of the chutney, I used this. And I spread that on one side of the bread. I put the egg salad on top, and then I added radishes to the one on camera. I just kind of alternated, because I did multiple of these. I alternated between radishes and cucumbers just to see, you know, if there was a big difference in what I liked more. I had to have a pimento cheese one too. So really simple. I literally just bought some pimento cheese, put some cucumbers, and again, alternated cucumbers and radishes, and I did multiple things, and that was it for that one. So what I originally wanted to do was have them cut in the shape of stars, and I had a star cutter, but the problem was it didn't get all the way through, and the bread, it was cheap white bread, you know, and so it was super soft, and it wasn't holding its shape, it was tearing, yada yada. I tried to go in with my little paring knife to make it prettier. Didn't turn out great, so I just abandoned that and cut it into smaller rectangles. I made as much wet sandwiches as my heart desired. Oh yeah, this was a feat. I have never roasted a chicken before. I was a little bit intimidated going into it. It's not a hard process. I just, you know, a whole bird with no head. Have you ever touched a whole raw chicken? It feels like a baby. And that's disturbing to me. I don't like doing that. And I in general, me, in myself, with my preferences, I don't like touching raw meat, period. So I just tend to stay away from things like this. And then the paranoia that comes with the whole salmonella thing, spreading all the chicken germs around, you know, it's just a pet peeve of mine, if you will. But for this, I did. So I got up early one Saturday morning, and I first started with prepping some vegetables. I wanted to roast some vegetables along with my chicken. You can't just have a chicken and no vegetables, you know what I mean? So I just took a couple heads of broccoli, and some baby carrots, and an onion that I chopped up just in big chunky pieces and threw those all in a bowl with some garlic. And I just smashed the garlic and tossed it in there, and my eyes were burning. My eyes were burning at that point. Then I drizzled the vegetables with olive oil, added some of that thyme, then just did some salt and pepper. I winged it, because I kind of do that when it comes to spices. I think I'm putting oregano in there. Yeah, that's oregano. And mint? Is that mint? I think she put in mint. What was the thought process behind that? I don't know. They were good, so I did something right, I guess. I like to play with spices. It's fun. I gave those a quick toss and just set that to the side until I was done with the chicken. So then I tackled the herbs for the herb butter. I chopped up some parsley, rosemary, more thyme, and then I just put those in with some softened butter and garlic and salt and pepper. Mix that up and then set that to the side until the chicken was ready. I quartered another onion and a lemon, and then I got my chicken out, which it had been sitting in a brine. So I made a brine, didn't film it, but it had basically all these same things in it that I'm using. I cooked the brine together with all the herbs and lemons and yada yada. Let it cool, stuck the chicken in the crock pot, poured the brine over it, let it sit there overnight. So it had a nice, marinade. Then we were ready to actually do something to the chicken. I patted it dry. You can see my struggle. I know. I hate it. Alexa, pause. Listen. I sat that in a roasting pan, stuffed it with rosemary, thyme, the lemons, and the onions as best I could. And then I took some kitchen twine, which, funnily enough, I've never used before. I did my best to tie the legs together. If that's incorrect, I don't know, don't care, it worked. Then I took that butter, that herb butter that I mixed together, and I slathered it all over the chicken as best I could. Yes, I used my hands. Yes, they were clean. It was just the best approach starting out, especially to get it under the skin, so that I could get it all around. And then it was hard because it wasn't sticking. There was nothing to grab the butter. There's nothing on the chicken, the surface of the chicken, to grab the butter. Therefore, it kept sliding everywhere. So once I got it underneath the skin as best I could and mushed it around, then I used the spatula to fully coat the rest of the chicken. Then I poured those vegetables around in the space around it. Then I stuck the whole thing in the oven. How long? I don't know. A while.
Cook for approximately 1 hour and 20 minutes, or until a thermometer inserted into the thickest part of the thigh registers 165 degrees.
So the oven was at 400. I had it in there, I think longer, honestly. It was more like an hour and a half that I had it in there. And also, I did take the temperature. Should I be honest and tell you that it came out a little underdone? Not the parts that I ate. But you know what? This was my chicken, so I just kind of cooked the rest through in other ways when I was eating it later. Well, no big deal. No big deal. It was my chicken. Okay? Don't judge me. I'm sweating all the bullets that you could right now. Behold. Behold. What an adventure. Who knows if this stuff is still warm, but we're gonna go ahead and try it. I'm gonna do the apple cider first. Smells divine. I put a little cinnamon stick in it. It's still a little warm. I also it. He said it was hard apple cider, you know, so. Wow. Yo, that's good. It's not overly sweet. I'll show you what I spiked it with. It's almost gone now because I've had it for a year. I used this Buffalo Trace Kentucky Straight Bourbon whiskey and added that. It's very warm in like a really comforting way. You get those spices in there. It's sweet enough. It just goes down so smooth. It doesn't burn, but it's spicy in like a spice kind of way. It's really, really good. I am supremely happy with that. And now on to the appetizers. We have our little finger cheese sandwiches here. We're gonna see how those taste. Our wet sandwiches in honor of Ash. That's probably mean. That's probably really mean. He was a great character. Here we go. I'm gonna do the egg sandwich first. This one has cucumber in it. Mmm. Very good, but so spicy. It's spicy. That, I'm trying not to hiccup. That garlic chili stuff has a real kick to it. It's not overwhelming, but it is spicy. That's to keep in mind. This is the pimento cheese, and this one has radishes in it. You can never go wrong with pimento cheese, in my opinion. Really creamy, nice flavor. The radishes are sliced so thin, and yet they have such a potent flavor. I like radishes. I think this one's better with the cucumbers, though. Let's try the egg salad with the radishes. Endure that spice again. I like the radishes with the egg salad more. It could have done with a little more salt, but that garlic chili stuff has so much flavor on its own that it's like, who even cares, you know? Yeah, main course, I guess. I don't want to talk about it yet. Carving the chicken. I hope it's done. I took the temperature of it a few times. It was just a kind of like a where do I poke it exactly, because it was different temperatures in all different spots. It was over at like the first time, and then it was under all the other times after that. It was sitting in the oven for like at least an hour and a half, so it should be done, is what I'm saying. I also hope it's not overdone. Yo. That's actually amazing, though. That's actually amazing. I'm gonna get a drumstick. Let's try the vegetables too. Wow. There's so much flavor, and it very much tastes like a holiday, like Christmas. Like, I wouldn't say Thanksgiving, weirdly enough, but it tastes like Christmas. It's very herby, garlicky. It's got like just plenty of flavor in there. Ooh! Do you see that bone slide right out of there? Hey. Look at my skills. That came clean out. Wow. I'm just gonna... Listen, this chicken's for me, okay? I'm gonna eat this until it's gone. This is my... when I went and got groceries, this is what I got. So this is what I'm eating for the next several days. You know what? I'm just gonna... beast mode. Oh my God. Yo. Bro, honestly, you see how I'm attacking this thing? That dark meat especially, it's like really well cooked and it's so flavorful. You definitely get that buttery taste and the garlic and the herbs. The herbs really push everything through. It's so good. All right. I don't know. I should have saved that for last. I knew it was going to be better than the pairing of these two things is incredible. These go really, really well together. Sorry. Do I have to? I already know. Let's be honest about these cookies, okay? Let's be honest. Maybe on camera it looks better. You can tell just by looking at it. Watch this. I'm sorry. Just watch. It's... You see that? No snap, no nothing. I can squish it in my fingers. It's sand. I don't want to eat this. I ate it when they were fresh and it was, I'm sure, no better than they are right now. Okay. The flavor is oddly better now than it was like 2 days ago. The texture is horrid. It's horrid. It tastes like kinetic sand. Like if you were eating a handful of kinetic sand. I don't like that at all. When I think of nutmeg ginger apple snaps, I want it to snap, you know? And these, they don't do that. These crumble and it makes me sad. I want a cookie. I don't want whatever this is. If I was to do this again, I would look up a ginger snap recipe and meld the two together, you know what I mean? And probably like pre-bake the apples and add them to the cookies so that the moisture, I don't know if you can see that, so that the moisture doesn't keep the center from baking, you know? They're fully baked, but when I was doing that, they're like the first batch was underbaked, you know? That's more like a dry coffee cake. Yeah. The flavors are much better than they were, like much better than they were. I don't know if that sugar just soaked into it or what, but I don't like that texture at all. I don't want to do this one either. But I mean, like, okay. Other than the fact that it's flat, it looks decent. It's just, they should have been eaten fresh, first of all. And I knew that going into it, but I only had so much time to do everything. Let's cut into it. Lame. The gooseberry jam did not make it to the middle. And for a few of these, I had a feeling that would happen. I barely got any in this one. It's dense. The proving, especially the second go around, just didn't go well. Again, the flavor is good. And in fact, the flavor is really good, especially with that gooseberry jam. That gooseberry jam is so good. They're dense. And you don't want a dense donut, you know? It's not great. The flavor's really good though. I'm not altogether mad at it. It's kind of like eating Dunkin' Donuts
several days after you got the donuts. Oh my god, that's bad. So, I mean, you know. But that gooseberries, yeah, man, it goes so well in there. I truly advise you to try that one. It just tastes like a really good fresh jelly, you know? And this apple cider complements everything in here. Oh gosh. All right, there you have it. Fantastic feast of foxes. It was quite the adventure, and I'm glad it's over. But do you see this setup? Damn, I know how to do that. That's enough of this. I'm hot and I have to clean all of this up. So thanks for eating with me. Bye.
There you have it. I said enough. I've talked enough. I've been sitting here long enough. Honestly, I feel like that went by relatively quickly. That's it. That's all she wrote. There's not much more to say. I did enjoy filming again. I enjoyed filming again. I enjoyed making food for a video again. I love creating things. I love creation. So I enjoyed the process of creating something to show you guys. And whoever watches it, great. Whoever doesn't watch it, no sweat off my back. I hope you enjoyed watching me do it. It was a lot. It was probably a long video in itself. It is what it is. I'm proud of it. I'm glad I did it, and I'm happy to move on to the next thing. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut it off there. I'm supposed to tell you things like subscribe and like the video and all that nonsense. Who knows when the next video will be up? You know me. Anyways,